And the invitation to email in topics holds for the online people too, the Zoom people, please. Yeah. So tonight we will conclude our series on the 5 controlling spiritual faculties. And the 5th faculty, no surprise, is wisdom. And this is, wisdom is the culmination of our practice. It is what we are developing as we meditate, as we train the mind. And wisdom is very connected to right view, the first of the factors in the Eightfold Noble Path. It's the thing that we have to have enough wisdom. We have to have enough contact with the wisdom teachings to start our practice, to get on the path. And this faculty of wisdom will continually increase as we practice, and finally culminating in a penetrative wisdom, a breakthrough wisdom. And we will see things as they really are, not through this distorted lens of ignorance and delusion and conditioning that we normally live in. And so I want to start tonight reading the fleshed out definition that the Buddha gives of what he means when he talks about this faculty of wisdom in terms of the 5 controlling faculties. So this is from the Samyutta Nikaya, the Connected Discourses, the great book, and it's in the Indriya Samyutta, the faculty. It's the whole section is about these 5 controlling faculties. Very, very important. And what bhikkhus is the faculty of wisdom? Here, bhikkhus, the noble disciple is wise. They possess wisdom directed to arising and passing away, which is noble and penetrative, leading to the complete destruction of suffering. They understand as it really is. This is suffering. They understand as it really is. This is the origin of suffering. They understand as it really is. This is the cessation of suffering. They understand as it really is. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. This is called the faculty of wisdom. This is the 5th of the controlling spiritual faculties. We all know them, right? We can say them all together out loud. Faith, energy, mindfulness, samadhi, wisdom. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I would be such a good elementary school teacher.
Same for 5-year-olds.
Yeah. No, it's this is what does the meditating. This is what we are growing. We're decreasing the hindrances. We're dealing with the hindrances, and we're growing these 5 controlling spiritual faculties, culminating in wisdom. And so this twofold definition that the Buddha gives, the wisdom of that's a penetrative wisdom of seeing arising and passing away, and then this wisdom that sees things as they really are, that deeply knows and understands the 4 noble truths, has experienced them. So first, talking about this arising and passing away, of course, there are these, a variety of time scales in the teachings and in the universe. I mean, in the cosmos, in life. So in the teachings, there's this very, very, very large scale, where you have world systems arising and expanding and then imploding, then collapsing. So you have this huge time scale, and then you can eons and eons, just like we're aware that many insects live a very, very different lifespan than say a human or a tortoise. There are these different scales. So world systems arising and collapsing. Then we've got civilizations arising and collapsing. We've got life. And there's definitely a variety of length of life, from very short to much longer, around 100 years for a long lifespan. And then even down to, the breath. We're getting smaller and smaller. And the heartbeat. And then it gets smaller. In the Buddha's teachings, there are these mind moments. And there's hundreds of them in 1 second. The mind is moving that quickly. So much is happening. And as you meditate and things slow down, you start to realize how quick the mind, you can experience how quick the mind can flit. And you might have had some experiences in meditation where your sense of time becomes very, very altered. This is one aspect of meditative experience that happens as you start to go a little bit deeper. At times things could really, really speed up, and you can start to feel almost like, oh my gosh, we are on a planet that's spinning at quite a velocity, and you sometimes you can start to have experiences of feeling just how fast everything's going. Other times in meditation, things can get very, very slow and almost, like a very, very different sense of time. And sometimes you can come out of meditation and it can feel like it was quite long and it wasn't so long, and vice versa. Like it was quite short and actually it was quite long. This whole arising and passing away. And eventually, when the mind is very still and very strong, you start to really see the quickness of this arising and passing away, how quick everything is actually going, and everything is in flux. I mean, the Buddha saw, his mind became, like an electron microscope. He saw such fine grains, such fine detail of the reality of mind and body, of materiality and mentality. So this arising and passing away, this is a continuum. So this is an area to be strengthening the wisdom faculty. And with the breath, if the breath is your meditation object, it's very much built in, this arising and passing away. The breathing in and then the breathing out. This is an arising and a passing away. And if you are trying to have more continuity of awareness and strengthen your tranquility, really something that you can work with is really noticing the end of the out-breath. This is the most subtle part of the breath. And it also counters our deep habit energy around beginnings. Usually we have a lot of energy for beginnings because it's new and novel. This happens very, very young, and that we start having this appetite, this thirst, this this energy around beginnings. And as we're meditating, it's wonderful to be training the mind to have just as much attention on endings. And so that's a wonderful place. And you can it's just a great tool for strengthening the continuity of your awareness with breath meditation. And it's definitely linked to this arising and passing away. It's not the penetrative arising and passing away wisdom that the Buddha is referring to, but it's going in the right direction. It will take you there. And the second part of the definition of this spiritual faculty of wisdom is the Four Noble Truths. And this is the essence of the Buddha's teachings. And this is what, this is our path of practice, the first noble truth. And it's noble because it's true. It's so true that life inherently has lots of suffering, lots of dissatisfaction. I just spent 12 days with my grandchildren, 6 and 4. And I got back to the monastery yesterday and immediately with Anna Garikasera, it's like, I do not want to be reborn. I mean, I'm going to be, like, but wow, so much suffering, and mothers here of young children are smiling. It's so powerful for seeing the Buddha's teachings in action, to be around a really young child and to be trying to be really, really honest. Oh my gosh, I am just like that. I just, it's a little bit more sophisticated and a little bit more subtle, but it's the same stuff, just the suffering that we create because of the second noble truth, because of our craving. And just watching these two dear beings, lovely beings, but just they're, same as us. They've got this human mind that's just a craving machine. It is a craving machine. That's how we got here. And then just to get really clear and honest about it. And to see the suffering that's created, My sister had 4 children and she was a single mom for much of the raising of these 4 children. And she would make this joke, they'd be in the car, be like, the next thing they're going to say is, he's breathing my air, It's like, they just make a problem out of anything and everything. Like, yeah. Wow. I want the pink one. And, it's like, yes, everywhere. Like, wow. It was so intense. I'm serious. I had them on my own for about 5 days. Not about 5 full days. Yeah. And this is the craving, like really seeing it. And then I'm realizing, like everyone, we just bring that right into our meditation. How can we not? It's just what we're doing all the time. And then we make all these problems in our meditation, like seriously, like that's not the breath I wanted, and Suzanne had it so much easier than I did. Yeah. If only, seriously. We just make so many problems. We really do make them. You see it with the 4-year-old. Wow. It was the game they wanted to play, but it wasn't the piece they wanted to play with. And then, oh, wow. And unending craving. And one time, my poor 4-year-old granddaughter, we're doing this puzzle, and then she just starts thinking about this puppy that she saw at Toys R Us, and then just this complete meltdown. I want the puppy. She's lying on the floor crying, thinking about this puppy. She's a Buddhist nun for a grandmother. First of all, I don't handle money. I can't drive to the, like it's a no-go. We're not getting the puppy. Anyway, but it was a really amazing time because I taught her, like, honestly, you're making yourself unhappy because you're thinking about something that you can't have right now. And I told her, I said, the wanting is the problem. And as soon as you get the puppy, you'll want something else. And it was wild. Like,
did she take that to heart?
She like slowly she took it in, and then she was lying, and then she started to tap on this pot, this big pot that a plant was in, and it made a very beautiful, soothing sound. And it was I was like, oh, that helps, with the wanting, and I just taught her not to think like that, to think about something else. It worked in that moment, and it was felt like a lovely thing to address the actual problem. And it's the same for us, just seeing it so vividly. It got a little intense, seeing that much craving and knowing I'm the same. Yeah.
Question in the back row.
Question, yes, please.
Yeah, sorry, I just had a question, like when you said about the noise, the beautiful noise that was like calming your grandmother. I wondered, like, is that craving in itself, like craving that beautiful noise?
No, I think that it's what I want to be talking about tonight, of using wisdom to skillfully move the mind away from the thing that is the source of suffering. So that sound just came. It wasn't like she was craving something else and then filled it with the sound. There was something spontaneous about her, there was a lot of agitation in her nervous system. And then she started to do this drumming. And then it just, and this is what we need to do with our craving. We need to realize the craving is the problem. The craving is the problem. And so we need to see it, feel it. It's very unpleasant. Wanting, if you're so often, we're not with the actual wanting, we're with the object of the wanting, and we're captivated, and that there's something alluring and pleasant about that. But if you bring the attention in, which is what we're learning how to do as we meditate, if you bring it in and start to realize that there's this wanting, there's this, like, wanting, the very essence of wanting is a sense of lack. There's a sense of lack that we live with, many of us, 24/7. A lack of self-worth, a lack of contentment, a lack of fulfillment, a lack of meaning, whatever. And we're constantly trying to fill that instead of address it, to come to know it. And this is the path of wisdom. These are the wisdom teachings of the Buddha. The first noble truth is that life is inherently dissatisfying because of our ignorance. And the symptom of our ignorance is our craving. So we are approaching life with all of these very diluted, painful strategies. So I lost my train of thought. Yeah. Oh, the instructions for the first noble truth are to understand to understand that suffering and to understand the anatomy of it, like how come? And then it's because of the second noble truth, which is this craving, which will never work. And we just have to learn that over and over and over. But every time you learn it, it's so there. Every time you learn it, there is this freedom. There's this experience of relief and release. And that is us growing our wisdom, growing our wisdom, growing our wisdom. Yeah. So the Four Noble Truths are actually a practice. It is our path of practice. And so you can begin with starting to be honest with yourself about, wow, I'm suffering. I'm just that, I'm suffering. And then start to be, what is the flavor of this suffering? It's dissatisfaction, or it's anxiety, or it's worry, or it's overwhelm, or whatever. Start to figure out what that is, and then start to understand. It's amazing. Suffering is the path. It's what gets us on the path, and it's what we work with on the path, and then we graduate, and no more suffering. It's so exciting. Yeah. And so suffering is something to to really turn toward and start to embrace. It's very different than, normally we're just trying to fill the life with pleasant, pleasant, excitement. But these are all Band-Aids. They all short-term solutions to a long-term problem. Yeah. So suffering is the path of practice to really start to understand it. And in terms of craving, the Buddha teaches us that there are distinct flavors of our craving. There are distinct categories, and one is sense craving, and so you can feel that in your nervous system. You can feel that in yourself when you're feeling a little bored, or you're reaching for your phone. This is all sense craving. You get caught up in memories and fantasies and Netflix or whatever. This is all sense craving. And the second is really sort of like this craving of becoming. And we all have that very, 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 very strongly, of like identity, image, position, status, being right, all of these things. And with all of those things comes suffering, So, for example, if I'm very identified with a role in my life, a strong identity for me throughout my life has been being a mother. And it's causing tremendous suffering right now in my relationship with my daughter, because I'm still trying to be too actively a mother, telling her, poor woman, she's 34 years old, And so there were several instances on my trip of like, Mom, I just wanted to tell you this thing. I didn't want you to fix it, like, at all. Like, now I don't want to tell you anything, it was like that. And that's because I've got a lot of identity. If the more I let go of that, then we're just two adult women together. I am her mother, but not actively really anymore. Yeah. and this is not the greatest example, but we do it all the time. If you have identity around being good at something, then then now you're all fragile when it gets criticized or when it's not up to what your standard is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's another big area of craving and then the suffering that comes with it. And the third strong area of craving that the Buddha identifies for us to be able to understand our situation and understand ourselves and understand our problems is this craving of not being. And that really gets, we all have it. And so these are the times that we numb out, we check out, or we greatly distract ourselves. This is all of the avoiding, and the pushing away. Becoming and not becoming are you can really, they're kind of like the roots of craving and aversion. Yeah. And this is the cause of our suffering. So the more we understand it, this is our wisdom growing. And lots of times, for me, much of the time, I still need to speak with a spiritual friend to understand more fully my own patterns and ways to work with that suffering using wisdom. Usually right now, I still need the wisdom from outside, but that's wise enough right there to know I need wisdom from outside. So even if it's just reading suttas or listening to Dhamma talks or talking with spiritual friends, this is us growing our wisdom, working with the Four Noble Truths, and really bringing in our faith to know that we can, the third Noble Truth, we can let go. And eventually we'll let go of everything. Let go of our misguided understanding of a self. And then, the fourth noble truth is pointing to the Eightfold Noble Path, this practice. And this is our practice, that we practice to pick up a perspective or a deep acceptance or understanding that leads to the letting go of the craving that's causing the suffering, that it's not working in my life anymore. And it's based on ignorance and delusion. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're craving like love from a parent, partner, or a child, or something like that, would that go into the senses, or where would that go in? What type of craving is that?
It's probably more around the becoming. Yeah. And we, until we're really, really evolved, we have basic human needs. And so, and even the Buddha, he was clear that even for his monks and nuns, it was extremely necessary for them to have these four requisites. And the four requisites are being provided by a lay community. And they are food and clothing and shelter and medicine. So we cannot practice well unless we have our basic needs met. And there's beautiful suttas where the Buddha is going to visit 3 monks that were practicing together, and all became arahants. And there's 2 wonderful suttas where he goes and visits them. And the first thing he asks them is, are you getting fed? Are you getting the requisite? And the next thing he asks him, it speaks to the question you just asked. The next thing he asks them is, are you getting along? Are you harmonious? And he asks those 2 things before he asks them, how's the meditation going? You know, we must have our physical needs, and we really even need, at a certain point in the path, we even need our psychological, emotional, human, relational needs met in order to feel safe and calm and secure. Yeah. I want to end this evening reading a description that Ajahn Sucitto gives of this this kind of wisdom. Darn, I thought I had a bookmark. Okay, here we go. Did have a bookmark, but I put it, yeah. Okay. So he calls this realization, the flowering of wisdom, and it's just I think a really powerful descriptive example of a practitioner working with these 4 noble truths and working with their own mind. When we see what we see with insight is that all our aversion, our greed or worry cluster around perceptions or impressions that we have. They're not innate and they're not self. For instance, when you dislike a person, the person in your mind is actually, and this is really important, is actually an accumulation of various impressions that irritate you. The perceptions that do otherwise are screened out. You don't remember the person's suffering, their virtue or nobility. You remember their tardiness, their greediness, or lack of cooperation. In this way, you build up an identikit picture of a person based on a few perceptions. But if you step out of that through calming the mind, you can investigate and acknowledge the things you weren't noticing. And then it's clear that this isn't a person, this is an impression of them that I've created out of aversion. And as you look into that, you learn what your own mind can't tolerate. And as long as that remains the case, you're allowing that picture to have power over you. So you inquire, how has my mind gathered together this particular image? Then you begin to understand that such perceptions are selective impressions based on pain and on not being in touch with or being able to handle the wave of pain. So it gets stuck within us and can't pass. We're sensitive and don't like irritating things. But if we're not wise enough to acknowledge and let go, if we ignorantly shield ourselves from that irritation, these irritants get embedded into anxiety and aversion. You only get past them by looking into them, into how they're caused, and letting them pass through you. It's really exciting, you know. The problems are not out there. The problems are in here, which is so wonderful because we can't actually change out there, but we can work within here and we can grow our wisdom and suffer less and less and look less and less like a 4-year-old. When I first became an anagarika, super struggling, really difficult. And somebody came to be a steward at the monastery. And we stood up from our meditation and they asked, "Oh, so how was your meditation?" I'm like, "It was awful, like everything else, you know." And then I said, I seriously, I feel like a 3-year-old. And I'm like rising up and trying so hard to act like a 4-year-old. And the response of this person was life-changing for me. They're like, "That's so good." It's like, really? You know? And it helped me. It really helped me to turn towards, because I had been stripped of all my identities when I became an anagarika, you know, and I was super struggling. And it helped me turn towards the suffering and understand myself so much better, and not think something was wrong because it was so difficult. Anyway, so yeah, can embrace that inner, sometimes very young places, and we can grow them up. Sometimes people talk about waking up and growing up. Yeah. And yeah. So yes, please, if anyone has any comments or questions, please.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said about like bringing the craving in closer, like we experience the suffering because our attention is out there. So when you bring the craving in closer, and you said often we can then identify that the root, like the origin, is lack of something. So then what? We bring the craving in. Oh, I'm having this experience of lack, or this sense of lack. And then what?
So then you need to be with that sense of lack, as unpleasant as it is. And you can start to deconstruct it.
Mm.
So you don't want to just try and talk yourself out of it. That's what we do sometimes when we really touch into those places of feeling unlovable, or feeling, you know, not good enough or unworthy, etc., etc. And you can't just say, "Oh no, but I am worthy," you know, and gosh golly, people like me, people love me, you know. No, just be with that be with that unpleasant, uncomfortable, painful place.
There's a special way to be with it.
Thanks.
And Ryan's figured this out, so why don't you tell her, Ryan? Let me explain to her.
The holding technique, yes. Yeah.
So tell her how to do it.
Well, you basically, instead of thinking in your mind, you just focus on the physical sensation. So it kind of flips from thinking in your mind to just focusing on that, and no longer in your mind, and it starts to feel better.
So do you think of that as like a place in the body?
Exactly.
Yeah, so you'll have like a sensation, you know, like when you're watching a movie and you have like you know, there's excitement there, or there's like horror, or there's whatever, you have that sensation. So you stop thinking about the thought and you just think, "Oh, where is that in my chest?" Okay. And then it dissipates from your mind. Takes 30 seconds.
Wow, you're good.
So you're no longer feeling it.
Yeah.
Because you're keeping your attention down on your body. So like holding your attention with love, embracing this uncomfortable feeling where it's physically located, but you're no longer fueling it with the thoughts. And so the fire doesn't have fuel, it runs out. So there's nothing to keep this going. Once it's burnt up the fuel that it had, it ends.
Yeah, and you're holding it like, you know, with a lot of love, a lot of tenderness and care. And, you know, that's It's mindful. That's so much of what, so much of, we just need to be seen, need to be witnessed, and we end up just witnessing for ourselves. Yeah.
Thich Nhat Hanh called it the holding technique because he said it's like holding a hurt child in your arms. You know, if your child has just stumbled and fallen down, you gather them in your arms, and they don't need anything done, but they just being held in your arms, they feel your love, they feel your caring. Then in a moment they wipe their tears and run off playing again. So you're the hurt child. So with love, you're metaphorically holding your attention on that, on the physical aspect of it.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you were speaking about aversion against someone, and then oftentimes we have a very unwholesome attitude towards the person. So I'm throwing everything negative towards that person. And I might not be able to become wholesome in that position, going to where does their suffering lie, where does this come from? But when do we draw the line? Let's take, what would the Buddha have said about a person like Hitler?
First of all, the Buddha completely understands karma, so I think the Buddha would have tremendous compassion for someone that's being so unskillful, because they're creating terrible karma for themselves. Terrible. Yeah, I mean, Silka, the Mangala Sutta, where this is a sutta where angels, devas come and ask the Buddha, what is true happiness? And then he gives a beautiful teaching. It starts with the very first thing is not, having the company of wise people, and limiting your company with people that are foolish. So the thing about aversion towards others is that we're the ones that are suffering. But if someone is really unskillful in their interactions with us, there's nowhere in the suttas that talks about just continually, putting yourself in that situation. There are times when we don't have a choice because they're in our family or they're our boss, and so then it's twofold. You want to work with your own mind, heart, and then you also want to bring online certain boundaries or certain ways of negotiating that are within your capacity. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I sometimes feel that with the Buddhist teachings that you have to really try until you die. It's like, when am I allowed to just say, look, this actually doesn't work. I can't have as much compassion as I want, but it's not going to work here. And I sometimes just go, I keep hearing this piece that I'm not doing enough. I'm not that Buddhist enough to get it right.
I think that the Buddha, when he would teach people, Silka, he would always start where they're at, always, and then build from there. So that's I think the Buddha would want for you to be feeling really jazzed about your path of practice, and not like it's not good enough and I should be doing more. these are not wholesome. Those are not wholesome thoughts. So you want to, this is where you can speak with wise friends, and you also want to keep how much you're taking on to be within your capacities, to not get to where you're doing more for someone than, that's now, going into resentment or no, then you adjust.
There's a sutta where the Buddha was trying to instruct this group of monks, and they were saying, "And we don't want to listen to you," and he left. He didn't stay. He left, and Ajahn Sona talks about, when we have people that are very difficult to get along with in our lives, if you're able to separate from them, he's saying, just separate from them, and then you can bring them to mind. You can practice metta or whatever to see if you can change how you're feeling. But he said maybe in don't bring them to mind for 3 months, and then bring them to mind and see how you're doing, see if things have shifted. If not, wait another 6 months and maybe bring, so nowhere have I had a teacher that said, you should stay in relationship with people that you have a very difficult relationship with. Unless, as Ayya said, there's, you can't, because they're family or workmates or something, you can't get out of it. But nobody's saying that you have to stay in relationship. And the Buddha himself walked away from, a group of monks who weren't willing to listen to him.
There's even a sutta, I think it's Majjhima Nikaya 64 or 67, where they're making all this noise. It always is like fish monglers. Yeah, that's always the expression. They're being noisy like a bunch of fishmonglers. And then the Buddha just says, I cannot live with you. And leaves. He actually goes back. He eventually goes back, but he does do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's actually several suttas where the Buddha's like, this isn't working for me. Yeah.
It's also interesting to note that the way that the suttas are expressed often in terms of negation, so non-greed, non-hate, non-delusion. There's always an aspiration to have generosity and clarity and great loving kindness, but we can remind ourselves that just the absence of negative is
Totally.
also a win. So it's a gradient that we work on gradually.
Totally.
It shifts depending on situations.
Yeah, non-aversion is huge. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so we're actually past time. Sorry.
What week are we on?
Maybe 3 or something. I don't know. Oh, there. There's no freaking up there. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, okay. Mudita.
Oh dear. Samamita.
But the last time we did this, it took 5 minutes.
Yeah, but it's already 25 to 9. You asked.
Okay. We're doing a vote. It's mudita, where we go around the room and everybody shares, if they wish, a happiness, and the rest of us do our best to feel happy for you. And if envy arises, we do our best to transform that into happiness. But it's going to take
because everybody's speaking, it's going to take 5 to 10 minutes. So hands up if you want to do this practice, if you want to stay here another 5 or more minutes. So and this Zoom room, okay, I didn't see you. Okay, so we have less than half of the room, so we'll do a quick closing.
Let's all be happy for Ayya Ahimsa's time with her kid.
The deep lessons I learned. So yeah, so much, so excited, and happy to be a nun living in a monastery. Gosh. I mean,
It sounds like you're ready to babysit.
That's our new babysitting service.
No.
Got 3 children. She got
I
2.
know, no, I do, I love kids, it was great and rich with lessons, yeah. Can we do the week 5, that one?
Okay.
And we will do mudita Friday when we get back. Thanks. This is a very beautiful meditation that we'll end with.
Okay, it's a guided meditation on letting go by one of Thich Nhat Hanh's students. Breathing in, I see the need I have to control my life. Breathing out, I let go of the need to control my life. Breathing in, I see that control is an illusion. Breathing out, I relax in my inability to control. Breathing in, I see how critical I am of myself. Breathing out, I let go of the need to be critical. Breathing in, I see all the goodness in me. Breathing out, I relax in the knowledge of the goodness in me. Breathing in, I see the many ambitions I have for myself. Breathing out, I let go of the many ambitions I have for myself. Breathing in, I see that I am sufficient in all ways. Breathing out, I relax in knowing that I am sufficient in all ways. Breathing in, I see that I crave many things. Breathing out, I let go of the need to crave many things. Breathing in, I see that I have enough. Breathing out, I relax in the knowledge that I have enough. Breathing in, I see that I am too busy. Breathing out, I let go of the need to be too busy. Breathing in, I want a less hectic life. Breathing out, I relax in the quiet of this moment. Breathing in, I see that letting go can make me free. Breathing out, I am free. Breathing in, I see that by being free, I can be happy. Breathing out, I am happy. May the merit of our practice be shared with all sentient beings, named and unnamed.
Noma,
Lynn,
Derek,
Leeds, Blair,
Harry,
Simon,
Janice,
Liz.
Rose, Scott.
May all beings be well and happy.